Welcome to Books the Biz, the show where real-world business meets real-world results. Hosted by business strategist Dan Paulson and veteran CFO Richard Beltry, this podcast breaks down the stories, trends, and financial insights shaping today's companies. Dan brings decades of experience helping leaders simplify operations, build strong cultures, and scale with confidence. Rich adds his deep financial expertise from guiding organizations across healthcare, construction, logistics, and professional services. Together, they dig into what's really happening behind the numbers and what it means for owners, executives, and anyone trying to grow a stronger, smarter business. This is practical conversation, real talk, and tools you can use right now. Welcome to Books the Biz.
Welcome back to Books the Biz. Good afternoon, everyone. How are the two people on the call here today doing? Kelly, how about you?
Absolutely fantastic. It's a wonderful day.
Rich, how about you?
Great.
Awesome. Well, good. Kelly Murphy, thanks for returning. It's always nice to have an HR perspective on top of the operations and the finance, and I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful discussion today.
Always.
Reason for bringing you back is employee frustration. Why do employees leave? And I think you can share some HR insights. I know I can share some operational insights because actually I've been dealing with that right now with some clients. And I'm sure Rich can talk about some financial insights of the cost of what happens when that key person walks out the door and leaves you stranded. So anyway, Kelly, that's kind of my synopsis of it. Where do you want to take it from here?
I think this is a very relatable topic because in some cases, it's just people being people. We all have that human day, which I know everyone knows what I'm talking about, where it's just like, your fuse is like this long and everything seems to just go wrong on those days. So when we're talking about tying this to employee frustration, I think this really goes back to the culture that you have set up. Do you have grace built in, for example? Everybody has a bad day sometimes, but everybody doesn't have a bad day every single day. If that's happening, there's a bigger issue. So kind of the red flags as I'm working with clients that I see is it starts to come out that there's inconsistency. There's inconsistency in communication. There's inconsistency in behavior. We don't know which version of the manager is going to show up today. Is Amber going to be nice or is she going to be snippy today? So no offense to any Ambers anywhere. Just picked a name.
My daughter will forgive you.
You see what I mean? It's just you do need to have kind of that psychological safety where it's okay, we all make mistakes. We all, it's okay to just kind of be human sometimes. But we need to be, especially from leadership down, this needs to be very consistent of, okay, we do need to try to course correct, but there's not going to be somebody waiting around the corner ready to bop you on the head. And that, unfortunately, is kind of the case, and which is why it ties into our topic today. Employees, if they feel like they've been zinged a couple of times, or if they've been coached unfairly, or if they're seeing inconsistency with how other people are handled, think about things like favoritism for family member or friend, whatever. That's when they leave. They're just this is not something that I can solve. This is on the leaders to fix the culture, communicate what the expectations are, and also kind of bake it into the day-to-day, forgive the pun, but day-to-day operations. Things happen. Life is life.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I also see a lot of inconsistency, and this is where it kind of comes into the operations side of things. So you talk about family members. A lot of times, nepotism bleeds into that. Probably bigger conversation, as you pointed out, the inconsistency of how people are treated from the standpoint of, do they feel like they're treated fairly in a, I'll call it, disciplinary situation, a correction of some sort. And some of that is subjective because we tend to be negatively wired. So anytime the boss comes to talk to us and it's not a positive conversation, that causes issue. I would also agree with you that the boss needs to do a better job of recognizing positive behavior. I'm actually going through that with a client of mine right now, because it's real easy to break out the stick when something's going wrong and say, we need to fix this and we need to correct these problems. And it's the constant look at everything that needs work. Unfortunately, when you focus on the negative stuff, you tend to get more negative stuff. And that's what people tend to see.
Yeah.
In my experience, it's about a 10-to-1 ratio. So for every positive thing you say, you need to say 10 positives to equate to 1 negative. And while that might seem like an unfair rule, that's just kind of the rule that is, because we get so much negative information, our brains are wired to detect that a lot easier. And we need to feed more positive into that. I can relate to a personal experience that demotivated me right out of a career with a company where I was working with an organization. And there was a situation where a certain product was brought back that was a non-returnable product. The company had strict policies on, you never bring this product back, because it was a specialized product, and there were just things you couldn't handle internally with it. Well, I got overridden by managers while I was not around, and they brought this product back, and I was left to try and figure out what to do with it. Standard practice was, well, you try to resell the product again. Well, their boss, the second in line in the company, decided to come for a visit that day. And we're out on the floor. Here's this product sitting on the floor, and I am getting scolded left, right, and sideways as to why this product is there and how could I dare take it back, and I suck, and there's 10 people waiting for my job, out the door, and I got scolded. Meanwhile, the people who did take the product back sat there with their tails tucked between their legs and said, well, we don't know why he brought it back. There's some other inconsistencies that you often see where people tend to protect themselves, and that causes bigger problems.
Yeah.
So about 67%, and you might be able to correct me on this, Kelly, but I believe 67% of people are at this point actively looking for their own job or a different job on average. It's usually around 70%, but 67 was the last number I saw. And this is where I'll kind of tee it up into Rich's category. What's the cost of replacing somebody, especially a key employee, when they walk out the door?
I have heard things like double their salary as the number for what it costs, whether you're adding up actual costs or opportunity costs or delay costs. So you add all that up, and typically it's double the cost of a salary. And with those stats so readily available, it's amazing that people still act the way that they act, and force people to want to leave. And once they leave, it's like they try to stop them from leaving. I'm like, you should have stopped them before the act that caused them to finally run out the door.
Right. Right.
That's when you get into, I put my accounting hat on, and it's like, you should just start to reserve for the fact that your people are going to leave. So every month put a little liability out there that eventually you're going to have to pay all these costs as people leave and go through the doors. But I believe it is double. I see Kelly shaking her head, so I think that's correct.
Yep, you're on the right track. However, I would say double is probably in practice the floor, because we're not even accounting for the fact that where is this person's work gonna go? So it's going to be divvied out among the other teams, which may result in overtime. It may hit their morale of, hey, why didn't you have a plan for this? Why aren't you doing the stay interviews, or call them whatever you want? Some people just call them conversations. Like, talk to your employees. Hey, are you happy here? Do you feel like you're on the right track? Like, it is as simple as that, but it does take time to do that, because you're right, Rich. Like, by the time they've made the decision, by the time they actually walk out the door, they've probably made the decision months before. Like, this is a done deal. They're not coming back. So I'll give a perfect example, Dan, because you were giving your personal experience. I had a conversation about this just this morning. So I'll give the high points. So this person is she's frustrated, and rightly so. And this is around inconsistencies with PTO. So people are taking PTO, they're not requesting it in advance. It's just like, well, it's a small company, and they're just like, well, I'm just going to take off for these couple of days. Okay, fine. But she went to the handbook, which is a great place to go. And she says, okay, my PTO days are this. The handbook says this. However, this office is so small. Of course, they know when other people are taking off, because who's doing this lady's work? She is. She's having to cover this other lady's job while she just randomly decided to take off. So this, we were originally talking about behavior and communication, which is part of it, but the policies, of course, are another part of it. We just have to, it doesn't have to be like, oh, before every decision, let me go check page 42 and see what it says. It's not about that. It's just like, hey, are we holding everyone to the same standards? Because now the woman I was speaking with this morning, she has a very strong perception, and it appears there's some validity to it, that she is being held to a different standard as other employees. So where do you think her mind is at? Where would your mind be at? I'd be looking like, wait a second, this is, if I've had conversations around this and nothing's changing, then I'm not really feeling very valued here.
Where I tend to see that is you have the key employee that has been with the company for a while.
Yep.
And they are the relied on resource by the owner. So you talk about small companies. I'd say small to medium-sized companies. If I go in and talk to that business owner, that executive, and say, who are your key people that you couldn't run the company without? There's usually anywhere from 1 to a half dozen, depending upon the size of the organization, that they would say they count on
100%.
Religiously to get things done. What I often find in those situations that means that they get all the work, and the work is not evenly distributed out amongst other people, because there's a lack of trust that other people can get the job done.
Yeah.
So now we overload one candidate, and usually that candidate will just suck it up because they're good people. They have some loyalty to the company. They, there's some believe some value in that, but they're getting burned out.
Yeah.
So then as you go over the years and over time, and they watch employees walk in and employees leave, and certain employees just sit at their desk and do nothing, or sit on the floor and do half of what this person might be doing. They're questioning, well, what if that person's making about the same as what I'm making? Why am I doing this? And I'm probably more valuable to somebody else if I go there. And that's where I'm seeing some of the shift happen, is where you're seeing 10, 20, 30-year employees just getting burned out and saying, I've had enough of this. I can make more money for somebody else and probably end up doing less work, but still provide value to them. So I'm going in, I'm taking my toys with me. Now back to your point, what's documented? So where's the consistency at? You just let your most experienced person walk out the door, and nothing's ever been documented, and there's no systems in place. So we're back to that scenario where now 2 times might be 4 times or 6 times, because of the amount of knowledge, which can't easily be measured by a dollar amount, that walks out the door on that.
Well, the people who, and you are so right, like the employees, and I have seen this as well, it's not always, but I have seen like these kind of longer term employees, they do get more work. And it's almost always because they're good at their job. So what is their reward? More work. So this goes back to what you were talking about, the 60%. That's the disengagement level is at that too. I think it's over 60%. And this is global. This is not something that's just small businesses or in the US. Like, this is global because the system that used to be and may or may not have worked, maybe it's never worked, is definitely not working now, and it's becoming glaringly obvious. So we've got to really look at the larger picture. So like these small businesses, they really need to step back, which is hard to do, and say, wait a second, where are our gaps? What do we need to fix? Particularly if there's a walkout in all that knowledge and all those skills, and some of those customer relationships that have been maintained for years also walk out with that person. I witnessed that with a former client as well. As soon as she retired, and as soon as she retired, the wheels started coming off the car almost immediately. It was like watching a train wreck. It was terrible. And then watching the company try to salvage, it was like, well, this is work that you should have been doing for the past couple of years. But telling someone should is not helpful in the moment, but it's so easy to see from the outside perspective, but so hard to see when you're in the day-to-day.
Yeah, and I'm going to toss this your direction, Rich, because I think it starts, it's a question for you, and then Kelly, this will probably flow your direction too. Benefits. So we've kind of talked about behavior, culture. We've talked about policy. Where do benefits factor into this? Because when you look at a lot of small to medium-sized companies, and healthcare probably being the biggest benefit out there that a lot of employees look at, especially if they have families, how do you justify either the cost of getting those benefits or not? Because smaller companies, they look at the cost of health insurance, and many of them go, well, I'm under 50 employees and I really can't afford to provide that option. What are some other things you can do? And I'm starting with Rich because this is kind of a financial question first, and then I think it falls into an HR question next. But, from your perspective, Rich, what have you seen that really works from a benefit side of things to maybe help with employee retention, or, help with some of that consistency in, turnover?
It's such a hard question.
That's why I started with you.
Thanks, Jim.
It's gotten so expensive. It's very difficult to, answer what's the best, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost like when I'm listening to this conversation, a lot of it really comes back to communication and advanced communication, not subsequent communication. If you know your employees, and you know what's, going to make them happier, then kind of go down the road of what is it that you can do for them that would make them happy. Yes, you're spending the money, you're paying that. That's not in their pocket. It's a burden, that's all. But at the same time, does it make them happy? Does it add to the flowery side of the job? And I think that in some cases, you try to do as much as you can, but you can't kill the company at the same time. So there has to be a balance somewhere. Yeah. Especially now, the subsidies away. So it's like everybody's cost went up like radically. So how do you help them with that? How do you go about it? I've been looking all year for new and improved. I'm looking for the out-of-the-box solution to how do you fund this? How do you get people something that they've never seen before but benefits them? So, and I don't want to be on my soapbox for this, but, I'm really looking for that next level, advanced benefits thing, because it's such a nuisance to everyone. I mean, they've raised the prices, everybody's paying more, and the insurance companies behind the scenes aren't covering anything. They actually, you're getting more explanation of benefits that says, oh, by the way, you don't have any. It's like, I'm paying double.
Right. Right.
You don't cover anything. So, being able to come up with those solutions, because that's where employee frustration comes from. My friend down the street has great coverage. What does he have? Well, his company is a 51-person company, and we're a 25-person company. So the benefits don't match. How do you make them look like they match? How do you benefit? It's so much more communication rather than is it a dollar and cents answer to the question. What's going to make them less frustrated so that they can focus on work and not be sitting there with the back of their head working on, I got to come up with the next premium,
Mm-hmm.
So again, in my mind, it comes down to communication more so than dollars and cents. That's the way I've been looking at it for now. How far are we into 2026? 8 months? I mean, that's been there's no solution right now. It's still the same old. I'm kind of hoping that when we get to January 1st, there'll be something else. So I don't know I hope I answered the question. I think my biggest answer is communication is key.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just me, but Rich, your audio is going in and out, like not all the way out, but you were hard to hear. I caught, I think 99% of what you were just saying, but just letting you know that it was a little like up and down there.
Yes.
So can I jump in
we'll throw
on
that
this,
your direction, Kelly. So what? Oh. Now your turn for the hard question. What are you see doing about it?
I have so many thoughts about this. So Rich, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like communication first. Actually talking to your employees and saying what is important to you. Because there are some employees where benefits just aren't a critical factor. Okay. So you would even be going down the road where your employees don't, it's a nice to have, but they don't even really care because they have coverage elsewhere or, whatever it is, it's just not a priority for them. So communication with employees first. The second thing, I'll just say the second thing. I don't think that there is a best or a right answer. And that's the tricky and the frustrating part because it's just like, it is so nuanced and it is deliberately confusing. And we all know it's sky high. It's not going to get cheaper. It's just not. So I've seen a couple of variations with my clients where they'll like mix and match. Some have traditional benefits, others give a stipend, and then they'll offer like a simple IRA, for example. So I think if we're going to provide a solution at this point, or even a suggestion for the audience, this would be to have the conversations. If a guy, or lady, whomever, some benefits rep shows up at your door and wants to have a conversation about ICHRA, for example, have the conversation, get informed, have them run the numbers for you so then you can make a good decision. I see, I've always, like anytime you're talking about benefits with employees, it's just kind of like eyes glaze over within about 2 minutes. But I think it's so important for business owners to have these conversations. Will it take time? Yes. Are you going to have to dig into the numbers and share some details? Like, is it going to be a little bit of administrative work of, okay, here's our list of employees, here's our current plans and coverage? Yes. But at least you'll have a plan going forward where you can make a more informed decision. By and large, though, I find, Rich and Dan, I don't know if you're finding this with your clients as well, but I find this pretty consistent behavior of avoidance. They don't want to have the conversation. It's not exactly the greatest conversation in the world, admittedly, but then they're either dissatisfied or they get caught with a rate increase, which is happening in double digits now, like in the 20s. That was unheard of even 10 years ago. So I'd encourage, have the conversations with the benefits people, see if they can offer you anything differently. It doesn't mean you have to do anything about it, but at least you have more information.
Yeah, I think that's key to all this. I believe the reason a lot of business owners don't have the discussion or don't want to have the discussion is out of fear that they can't compete with the companies that are, $50 million companies, $2 billion companies, which they can't.
Right.
However, there are other benefits that you do have as a small company that maybe you can't get away with in a larger organization. For example, some of that flexibility, Kelly, that you were talking about, yes, you need consistency, but the benefits of a small business is a lot of times there is a lot more flexibility when needed. So if there is family issues that pop up, a smaller company is probably going to be more likely to be able to bend the rules or at least work within the guidelines that are in, hopefully they have a handbook, but they have something there that they can kind of work through the challenges that you might be going through at that time. A larger organization is just going to say it's black and white, here's what it is.
Right.
You're stuck and deal with the bureaucracy of it. And, oh, by the way, you can't have that time off if you need that time off. And that's basically why I remembered about half my time in corporate America was in the large organizations. This is the way it works. You either follow these rules or you're out the door. And that's not what a lot of people want. I think especially younger generations want more flexibility in their work-life balance. And there are opportunities for smaller companies to give that, where maybe they can't afford to pay for health insurance, or maybe there's some offset that they can do to help subsidize that health insurance if that is something that is important to your employees. Maybe just before we wrap up here, cafeteria plans. That is something that you hear talked about off and on. You kind of brought up ICRAs, which is, and maybe you want to explain a little bit more about what that is. We did have somebody on, I believe, last year who talked about, ICRAs a little bit more. So, we're a little versed on it, but, what are some of the things, Kelly, that you can look at from the standpoint of those benefits or of that structure or of something like a cafeteria plan, maybe where you offer a certain plate of money that they have to use, and then they can distribute that money towards whatever benefit they see most beneficial to them at that particular time?
Yeah, I think within, so I'm kind of gonna answer this carefully because I don't want to really get into all these plans and their designs. But I will say, like, within all of these plans, there's more levers than you may realize that you can pull. You can look at deductibles, kind of adjusting that, contributions, the premiums, the offerings. And this is all based on usage from the previous year. Like, this is where those numbers are coming from of, what did you have on your plan? So like a small business, if they had a heavy user, let's say that one of their employees had cancer, that's going to be a heavier user than someone who went to the ER 3 times. Those are the things that affect your premiums. So I would say, without providing specifics on purpose, look at what levers can you pull to obviously not break your budget, but also give as much, forgive the pun, but benefit as possible to your employees. Like, do you really need this like super juicer plan? Probably not if the usage is low. So it's really just kind of taking a deep dive and looking at the entire offering and saying, okay, what can we adjust within each one of these? There may be some things, especially in health insurance, there is some levers you can pull whether you have ICHRA or not. But dental insurance, there's less, dental and vision, there's definitely less flexibility, but that's okay because health insurance is by far the most expensive. So really have that conversation with the benefits person of what can we do? How can we do this differently or better? So can we just kind of tweak this one thing? And it doesn't have to be this giant thing. It can be a 10% tweak that maybe adds money back onto the bottom line. Maybe you add something. So I would say look for the levers within the plan that you can pull.
Got it. Very good. Rich, is there anything else you would want to add to that before we wrap up here?
No, I don't think so. I think that hits the nail on the head. So
this is a term we keep using back and forth, Rich.
So I think it all boils down to if you want to keep your people, be consistent across the board. And I think any one of us three can talk to you about that. And the second part, which seems to sound a little contradictory, is also be flexible and look for where you can be flexible in a consistent manner, I guess you could say. So Kelly, thank you again for coming in. If somebody needs to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
Email is best. Kelly, that's Kelly at leaninhr.com.
Excellent. Rich, how do they get a hold of you if they need something from you financially?
Also an email at rich@xcxo.net.
And you can get a hold of me at dan@xcxo.net. If you have any questions about this or need any help, any one of us would be happy to talk to you about it and point you in the right direction. It might be Kelly that helps you, might be Rich, might be myself. So please reach out. Kelly, thanks again for showing up. I'm sure we will have you on again in the near future as more subjects pop up. And Rich, as always, good to see you this week. And we will talk to you guys next week.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Books and the Biz. If today's conversation sparked new ideas for your company, the team at XCXO can help you turn those ideas into action. XCXO brings together seasoned executives, fractional CEOs, COOs, CFOs, and CXOs who step into your business with the experience, strategy, and leadership to drive real results. Whether you're trying to scale, strengthen operations, improve profitability, or prepare for transition, our experts help you move faster and lead with confidence. To learn more or start a conversation, visit xcxo.net. That's xcxo.net, your shortcut to stronger leadership and a better run business. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next time on Books and the Biz.